Welcome back, folks. Welcome back. Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, September the 11th, year 2019. I'm Shawn King.
I'm Melissa King.
Thank you guys very much for joining us here this Wednesday evening, or if you're tuned into the archive, appreciate you guys listening in. However you choose to listen. And Melissa's distracted because there's a cat under her feet. On tonight's show, we'll talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com about... There's not much going on, so no, I'm kidding, obviously. The Apple event. Big news, little news, medium news. Everyone's got a take on whether this was a good, bad, indifferent keynote. I want to hear your guys' thoughts, too. Send us emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. And Apple announced some new products. A new Apple Series 5 watch. A new version of the low-end iPad. Replacing the iPhone X or iPhone 10 XR is the new iPhone 11, replacing the new iPhone 10s and Max. I hate this naming convention. Is the new iPhone 11 Pro and iPhone 11 Pro Max. Will you be getting any one of those things? Let us know. Also, very interesting news about the Apple Arcade and Apple TV Plus. We'll talk to Jim about those things. We'll also talk to Melissa about stuff too. In our starting point photography segment, we're going to talk about is the new iPhone 11 Pro and iPhone 11 Pro Max, I hate those names, are they pro? Are they worthy of the name Pro for photographers? Too long didn't read version? Yeah, they are, depending on what kind of you are. We'll talk about those later on in the show. I want to say, last March, we went to Lisbon, Portugal, starting point photography. Had a blast. Dave and Ann and Dave and Mark and Debbie and Melissa and me had a lot of fun learning about photography in Lisbon, Portugal. A beautiful, beautiful city. We're trying to get together another one for this coming March, around the same time frame, for Dublin, Ireland. Another beautiful city in its own right and completely different from Lisbon. I think that's what really is exciting me about this. Personally, I've always had an affinity towards Ireland, being from Nova Scotia. There's a big Scottish and Irish influence there. Apparently, my grandfather was Irish. My grandmother was Italian, too, so maybe that explains a lot of the things I like. No, great-grandfather? Grandfather on my mysterious father's side. Don't even know. So the idea is going to be to go to Dublin, Ireland for a week. 5 days of classes, so you'll get in a day early, you'll leave a day later. Same situation as the Lisbon trip. We'll get together in the mornings for an hour of theory, then we'll go out wandering the streets of Dublin, specific locations, obviously, for putting into practice that stuff we just learned in theory. But it will be different than the classes we did in Lisbon, if only because of the light. The light in Dublin in March is non-existent. Dublin gets 3.5 hours of sunshine a day in March in Ireland. That's not a lot. So what you'd be learning as a beginner is how to see, manipulate, manage light in a different way than we were in Lisbon. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. There'll be a lot more black and white photography this time around.
There's a lot of rainbows in Ireland.
Rainbows, fog, mist.
It's the mists of Ireland, right?
It's going to be just fantastic.
Beautiful.
And hopefully we can arrange for a couple of day trips, too, to various places. When we were in Lisbon, we went to Sintra, the Penna Palace. And we'll show you the same thing in Dublin. So if you're interested in that, please send me an email to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. I'll send you whatever details I've got so far. Nothing's nailed down yet, but it's going to be. It's going to be. It's going to be a lovely time we're going to have there. Thank you very much. I'm shooting for a price point of about $1,200 US. That's flight, hotel, and classes. So that's pretty damn good. $1,200 for a week in Ireland, and you learn a bunch of, and you get to go to Dublin pubs and listen to music and drink Guinness beer. Now you were there. How old? You were in your early 20s when you were there, weren't you?
Yes. Yes.
Why'd you go to Ireland?
Well, look at me. I always want to go to Ireland. It's in my heritage. It's my favorite music in all of the world, Celtic music. I can't get enough of Celtic music. It was always my dream to go to Ireland. I don't know why else.
I've always wanted to go too, for a lot of the same reasons. The scenery, the people are wonderful. Irish are wonderful storytellers. I love telling stories, so I can learn from the best. One of the things that I absolutely want to do is go to Trinity College, the big important university in Dublin, and see the famous Book of Kells. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing book. The library there, if you've ever seen pictures of it, do Google or Flickr searches. It's a spectacularly beautiful place. We'll be shooting in there. We'll be shooting in pubs. And how you shoot in a pub in that light is very specific. And you have to learn that technique. You have to learn about ISO and exposure and metering and that kind of stuff. And we're going to learn about those kinds of things in these classes. So like I said, it will be different than Lisbon in hopefully a very interesting way. So I'm very excited about that. Not so much the idea of being cold, because March, it's going to be cold. If there's only 3.5 hours of sunshine, the sun can't warm shit up very much.
It's very similar to Vancouver, actually. It's that kind of very moist atmosphere that kind of can get to your bones. That's why you have to go into pubs, right?
That's right.
Because you got to sit by the fire, and it really is true.
Yeah.
They're beautiful Irish lasses. You'll suddenly hear a song, and you'll go, and someone will just be standing up and singing. They just sing. They believe in magic. They're just very, very wonderful people.
There's also a National Leprechaun Museum. Are you kidding me? Of course they'd have it, but it never crossed my mind that they'd have it. I'm going to the National Leprechaun Museum. I absolutely have to go to the National Leprechaun Museum. I have to. Dave D says, I recommend folks arrive a day early and explore on your own. Absolutely fantastic idea. It's a day early, a day late, both. But remember, you're also going to get afternoons off on your own, too, to go do your own exploration. I'll have a bunch of ideas for folks to places to go in and around Dublin. The other thing is, you can rent a car from easycarrentals.com for about $45 Canadian a week.
Oh.
Now, it ain't a big car.
You don't need a big
I'll
car.
probably outweigh it, but it'll also be a manual, too. You'll pay extra for the automatics. But you could rent a car for a day or two or three when it's that cheap, and in the afternoons go off on your own. And it's not huge distances to the west coast of Ireland. Dave D was just saying that's where he'll be in. I think he said May or October.
He said October and May.
Yeah, beautiful. That's right on the Atlantic coast, and that mental image so many of us have of the coastline of Ireland. It's the West Coast that you're thinking of.
And the legends of the Silkies.
Yeah.
I hitchhiked in Ireland, and when we didn't get a ride, my friend Tiss and I would lay in the grass on the side of the road, and we had one of those skins, and we drank red wine and ate soda bread. That's how we got to the West Coast.
Like a couple of hobbits.
We did. Yeah, we just rip off the pieces of soda bread. It was fun.
There's a whole bunch of Game of Thrones tours, too, that you can pay for to go. Really? Really?
Well, because of the castles and it's pretty beautiful.
Because I was thinking about just blowing that stuff off and just going, nah, I don't want to do it. But if you wanted to do it, we can do it.
I don't like tours too much.
And that's the thing. Many of the tours are, we'll go to 10 places. You have like 35 seconds.
Yeah. Quick, get out, take a picture, and then jump back in the bus again. No thanks.
I do want to go see the Giant's Causeway. That's in Northern Ireland, which is kind of an interesting, and that's a trip you can pay for. They'll drive you to Northern Ireland to go to this amazing place. Do a search, again, on Flickr or Google Images for the Giant's Causeway, and you'll get blown away by this fascinating rock formation. It looks like it's steps, like these massive 30-foot high steps.
Dave said he's going there.
Good, Dave. Take pictures. Monty says, Dublin, Ireland has an average high of 51 and a low of 37. So that's about 10 and 4 for us in Celsius. There are on average 11 days of rain. I'm betting there's going to be more.
Oh, yeah, it is on the cover of Led Zeppelin's album. Is that with all the...
Really?
The blonde kids on it or whatever? You know that album cover that I mean?
I don't know anything about Led Zeppelin. So
they're all on the rocks.
Only one I know is the Hindenburg cover, Led Zeppelin. So that's definitely one of the trips of I want to go to is go up to Northern Ireland, because that'd be kind of cool. Just go to Northern Ireland, but also be able to go to the Giants and take all kinds of stuff to do in Dublin. We will not have any surfeit, me with the fancy words, of ideas and things to do and things to visit. Molly Malone statue, and Temple Bar pubs, and wonderful. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about the iPhone 11 Pro Max and Pro, and whether or not they deserve the name Pro for us photographers. Are they worthy of the title Pro when it comes to photography? But up next, we're going to talk to a good friend, Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. We're going to talk to him about the Apple event and all the things that went on Tuesday. All that and much more coming up. This is your Mac Life. In our phone, we have that very same Jim Dalrymple, who was featured on CNBC Squawk Box on Tuesday, talking about the Apple event. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
How does that happen? How does CNBC get in touch with you? Do you contact them, or they reach out to you? How did that work out?
No, they just emailed me out of the blue.
And just said, you want to be on the show?
Yeah, basically, do you want to be on the show? And
did they know about you beforehand? Was this your first time on Squawk Box?
It was my first time on Squawk Box, yeah. Because I've been on other shows before. I don't know if any NBC shows. I've been on CBS and CNN and different shows.
I have this mental image of the director in the big director's room going, okay, bring up camera 3, Jim Dalrymple. Jesus Christ! The hell is that? Who booked this guy?
I think that's what the production guy said, because he went to do the mic. So I get up at like 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
Because this interview was at 4.
Yeah.
At 4:00 in the morning my time,
yeah.
At 7:00 in New York, and so I got there about 3:30, and he looked at me and said, I don't know what we're going to do with the mic.
Yeah, really?
I said, you know what? People have clipped it on to my beard. They have done all kinds of different things throughout the years to do this. So you do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me. I understand, the handicapped position of putting you in here.
Right.
So he said, okay, well, actually, let's just try it on the color of your T-shirt.
Yeah.
and see what happens. And he did.
Sounded fine.
And he said, you know what? On the side of the collar, he said, this sounds great.
Yeah.
So let's just go with it.
Good. No, it came out really well, and unfortunately, because of the delay, you and Gene stepped on each other a couple of times. And I wish you had actually stepped on Gene even more, because he said some dumb things, and it really kind of ticks me off that Munster, like so many others, get away with these ridiculous rumors that they keep posting. We saw today just dozens of stories from Mashable and Apple World Today and iMore and all these people talking about, oh, Apple didn't give us this. We didn't get tiles. We didn't get AR headsets. We didn't get... What do you say to those people?
Well, it's, to me, even in the interview when they were asking us questions, it was, for me, I the exact same thing that I said to you last week. iPhone and accessories. Yeah. So if we see an Apple Watch, that makes sense because it's an accessory. If we see an iPad, it's because it's not a big redesign, and it's an iPad with a smaller type of update.
Yeah.
And I believe that's what we saw from the iPad. I mean, it's a good iPad and really great price, but design-wise and everything else, it's a smaller update. So I would have said the exact same things to them. And I would have said, the Mac seems to be a bigger update. I really wouldn't expect the Mac, because they would do something special for that.
Yes.
And even if that's, more of a press release next month and not an event, that's okay. But it's Mac single event and not as part of the iOS environment, which was really what this whole event was about.
Yes.
But, Gene said his thing about Macs and tiles and, whatever. I mean, that didn't come back on me. That's got nothing to do with me. I wouldn't have said that, but,
But we see so many people today complaining that they didn't get what the rumor mill had, air quotes, promised them. And it's so frustrating that these media outlets, these pseudo-journalists, feel the need to bitch and whine about this stuff when they got caught up in their own hype, in their own belief of this stuff. People should know by now that many of the rumors that they're going to hear before these events simply aren't going to happen. They're just not. And you complaining about it after the fact makes you look like a Mac fanboy tool.
Well, it's not just that. I think it's misleading in a lot of ways. Yep. And now, for a rumor site itself to say, here's what we've heard, I actually think that's okay.
Yep.
If a rumor site says, this is what we've heard, but for other news outlets to report that this is what will be there is absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
And one of you look at Apple Insider or Mac Rumors, I think they both do a terrific job of saying, look, this could or could not happen. It's there. It's information.
Yeah.
I think they both do a great job of that. It's actually the mainstream media who come up and say, oh yeah, we're going to see tiles and we're going to see MacBooks and, all this stuff. And, I think at that point you have to take a step back and say, no, nobody actually said we're going to see that. These things are in the works. I think at that point you have to use your common sense and maybe some intellect and say, I don't think that the Mac will come if it's a big Mac update, because this is all about iPhone and the accessories for iOS.
Yeah.
So Mac doesn't make sense in this thing. And they don't do that. Maybe they don't know, but they don't do that. And I think that's the part that gets everybody confused, because people will tend to, look at the big media outlets as having the best sources, but in fact, they don't have any.
Yeah. And they're often just re-reporting what the main rumor sites are reporting, and then to cover their ass, they're saying Mac Rumor says or Bloomberg says, and that way they don't have to be on the hook for these kinds of things. They're just pointing to somebody else.
But that's not used. I mean, if they said, Mac Rumor says that, which Mac Rumors doesn't do, if they say Mac Rumor says that a MacBook is going to come, but we don't think so because of these reasons, then to me, it's not necessarily reporting, it's more opinion, but informed opinion. And, you give your readers something in there. But I just don't see much of that happening, which, is unfortunate because Apple has a great event and then people are dissing them because, we didn't get tiles.
Yeah.
Well, who the fuck expected tiles?
Exactly.
I mean, are they working on tiles? Again, I go back to what I've always said. Apple is working on everything.
Yeah.
Do they have tiles in their labs? Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely they do. Does Tim Cook have one on his keychain? Definitely. Definitely he does. And his remote and everything else. I mean, but is that going to come now? No.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't work like that. But
let's talk about what was actually announced. Apple Arcade was, I think, the first announcement. We've known about Apple Arcade for a while. We've had hints about what games are going to be on it, what kind of games are going to be on it. We saw a few more yesterday. The $4.99 price point seems like almost a no-brainer, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, now, I said this in my preview or, wrap-up thing yesterday. I am not a gamer.
Yeah. Same here.
I'm not a gamer. I'm not a photographer. Everything else I'm cool with. But $4.99, yeah, that seems like a no-brainer to me for anybody that loves games because the games that we saw were amazing.
Yep.
Probably the game that I would play out of everything that this show was Frogger. Because I used to play Frogger as a kid.
In the arcade,
yeah, in the arcade.
Yep.
If they had Frogger and Donkey Kong, I might sign up. But those are the only two.
Yep.
The rest of these games, I'm sure, appeal to millions of people, and they're going to sign up to get those. And I think that they're right to do so at $4.99. I mean, and it's $4.99 for a family.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing that I don't think enough people are really paying attention to is that if you've got children of any age below 16, I think buying Apple Arcade's a must-do. If you have kids that like to play games, the only games that we're seeing now are first-person type games. Where only one person's playing them. But I can guarantee you, out of the 100 games that are there's going to be some games that are family games. It's either the whole family sits around and plays in turn, watching each other, which can be fun, or hopefully there's some games that you can play with and against other members of your family. There's all kinds of games like that. Checkers and chess, the old classics. Monopoly, although they're not going to have those kinds of games on Apple Arcade. But regardless, even if you only got one kid who's a gamer, there's 100 games day one that the little bugger can play with. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it for the 13-year-old. Now, I'll certainly play a whole buttload of games myself just to test them out. But yeah, there are people online who are saying the Apple Arcade is not going to be a success. Those people are morons. At $5, it's going to be a huge success.
There is no doubt that Apple Arcade is going to be a huge success. No doubt at all. And I know some other companies that were not announced yesterday that are bringing games to Apple Arcade. And they are monsters.
Yep.
I mean, if the games announced yesterday weren't enough, these ones will be crazy.
Yeah.
So, I think what the questions that I had about Apple Arcade were twofold. One, the types of games that were going to come out. Are they only, like G-rated games like Frogger, maybe Lego or something like that, and the price point.
Yeah.
So what we saw yesterday was a bit of both for the types of games that are coming out. There are sci-fi or what are those fantasy type games.
Yep.
There's Frogger, which excited me to no end. I mean, I loved Frogger. Stop laughing at me, man.
It's funny. It just...
What? If I start to cry, don't make fun of me on Twitter.
We'll get to that.
The mix that they had, I thought was perfect. I really did. And the price point is just, it's a no-brainer. If you have a kid and you want it, then just do it.
Yeah.
It's done. And, there are enough games on there from what I saw and what I've heard separately from the event yesterday that will entice other types of gamers to come on board, that there is no way that this can't succeed.
Yeah.
It just can't.
So Apple Arcade will be a success. The pricing for Apple TV Plus, we finally found that out too, and that was certainly a surprise, wasn't it?
It was a surprise. I mean, we were all looking for ways that Apple could bundle Apple TV Plus and make the price cheaper. What we didn't expect is that they would just come out with a cheap price for quality content. I don't know that anybody really expected that. The lowest price point I really heard about was $9.99.
Yep, that's right.
But here we are at $4.99. On $9.99, it's kind of a stretch because then you're getting into Netflix territory.
Yeah.
But at $4.99, you're thinking, okay, why not?
Do you think that price point is a reaction to what a lot of people think of was that because Disney Plus came out at between $4.99 and $6.99, or is this an acknowledgement of Apple's that we don't have a huge catalog, we don't have a whole lot to offer you right now? We will in the future, but right now we think $5 is a fair price for what we're going to offer you.
You know what? I think Apple had this set long ago.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, they're not contrary to what some people believe, they're not a stupid company.
That's right. Yeah.
So they know, and they knew months ago, a year ago, that we don't have a lot of content right now. But, other companies, including Netflix, have changed their pricing as they went along.
Yep.
Netflix have raised their price. So we can raise our price when we do have a lot of content.
Yeah.
And maybe they come out with, there's no saying that in a year, next WDC, they can't say, you know what, we're putting the price up to $9.99 now for Apple TV Plus, but we're going to include HBO and we're going to include, some TV channels or whatever. That could happen. All kinds of things could happen between now and then. And we have 60 shows now that are original, not, just 30 or 15 or 20 or whatever the number is. So Apple could do a lot.
And remember, folks, this is the way Apple does things. They do it in steps. They do these little baby steps. The original iPhone was a baby step. Then we got the App Store, the original iPad, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. They build on the things they've done in the past. So what Jim is saying, I think, makes perfect sense. At $5.99, the offerings that Apple has, I think that's a fair price.
$4.99.
Sorry, $4.99. I think it's a fair price. And as you said, in a year's time, they're going to come out and say, hey, we've got 200 shows and we've licensed Friends or whatever it might be. So the price is going to go up to $9.99, and they can work all kinds of deals with this stuff. But if you prepay in advance, blah, 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 blah.
They can do all kinds of stuff.
I think I was talking before about the dumb things that people say. Someone wrote, does the Apple TV have to be good to be a success?
Well, yeah, it has to be good.
Seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this so many times over the past, 6 months or so. Yeah, it has to be good.
Yeah.
I mean, that trailer for C was so good.
Really?
I loved it.
Interesting.
I did. And I'm not usually the type of person that would like a show like that, but it looked really good.
Okay.
So, there's a lot of shows on there for all mankind. Probably the least of the shows that I would want to watch, but I probably will, is the morning show.
Yeah.
That one doesn't appeal to me so much, but you would think, with the shows that I watch, that would be the one that would appeal to me. I don't know why it doesn't. And maybe it'll be fantastic when I actually sit down and watch that show.
Yeah.
But, C was, I thought, a really interesting concept for a show.
Agreed.
So, I'm going to watch it.
My question is, how do they know the babies can't see?
Well, maybe it's when they get older. I don't know.
No, because in the show, they show him talking about the babies. Now, maybe the voiceover is different. They talk about the babies, and he says something different about the babies they can see. Are you okay, Jim? My problem with the C trailer is, yes, it looks great, and obviously throwing a lot of money on the screen. My problem is Jason Momoa can't act, and he's the main character.
Come on now.
He can't. He cannot act. He's a good-looking man. He's big, buff. He was good at Drogo in Game of Thrones, but he was awful in Aquaman. He's just not a good actor. I'm sorry.
I don't want to compare my paycheck to his.
I'm not saying anything about that.
Well, I mean, he can do whatever he wants.
He can. But it doesn't mean he can do compelling TV.
Well, I don't know. I thought it was compelling. I really did.
I think the interesting thing is going to be how Apple itself, I always go back to this, how Apple itself perceives success. Remember, Apple will not have and will not release ratings information with this. They will not say that unless it's insanely good, out of X number of Apple TV plus viewers, this many watched this show, that kind of stuff. You're not going to get the kind of Nelson ratings. All you're going to get from Apple is, here's the next season of this show, or it's been canceled. One of the two. So I think I think at this price point, Apple doesn't have to worry about having great content. Every show doesn't have to be Game of Thrones, but the content they have got is going to be good enough for that $5 a month price point. I think that's going to be Apple's advantage. Is you're going to throw $5 at them just for the heck of it.
Well, I think that the shows that I've seen are worth the $5. So for me, it's not just the heck of it. I mean, $5 is $5.
Yeah.
You start throwing around $5 here and there, then, you're throwing around a lot of money at the end of the month. So I think that the content that I've seen is good. Now, could we look at, these shows after you've watched a season and say, holy shit, that was terrible. Sure, you could, but, because the trailer, can be anything you want. It's like analyst numbers. You can make that into anything you want. Yep. But if it's good, then I think that they deserve the money,
Let's move on to the next announcement was the iPad. This is the lowest priced iPad. It's got even a lower price to it now. It's a little bump in size. disappointing that it doesn't support the Apple Pencil 2, but I understand why, because for better or worse, they're still using a fairly old processor, the A10. But Apple did say that 60% of iPad owners are new to the platform, and this is their most popular iPad. This is almost a no-brainer for this coming Christmas. If you have kids age, say, 8 to 14, this will be under their tree, especially if you're an educator and you can get it for $30 off. At $299, there's going to be millions of children this summer opening up iPads under the tree. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, there is nothing wrong with this iPad.
Yep.
I mean, I saw people saying about A10 and all that kind of stuff. A10 was a fantastic processor.
Yep.
I mean, make no mistake about it, it was fast. Obviously, the A13 Bionic is much faster, but when you look at an iPad, I mean, and what was it, $329?
$329.
And $299.
Yep.
So, I have no issue with that at all.
Nope.
None.
The only issues I have are minor little nits about the Apple Pencil support only being the one, because I hate the one. I think the way you charge it is stupid. It was Johnny Ive was drunk when he designed that one. But otherwise, if you've got a kid who's interested in an iPad for play or school or reports, if my son wasn't such a wonderful drawer, I'd say get him this iPad. I want to get him the iPad Pro with the Apple Pencil 2 because he's that much of an artist that he could really take advantage of it. But unless your kid is that level artist, this at $299 or even $329 is an absolute no-brainer if you can afford it. It's a wonderful, wonderful device that's going to sell, I think, in like literal proverbial hotcakes this coming Christmas season.
I don't disagree with you. I have nothing bad to say. Despite all the bad things that are being said, I think they're wrong, and I have nothing bad to say about it.
Yep, I agree with you completely. Apple Watch. I think we can say the same thing about the Apple Watch, can't we? That there's nothing bad to be said about this. We weren't expecting a whole lot. We didn't get huge things. We got the very interesting always on display for the Apple Watch, but price points are good. You actually were in the hands-on area. Can you see the difference between the titanium and stainless steel? The ceramic obviously is different, but is there difference between the titanium and stainless steel you can see?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, but how often do you really look at that? I think that the finishes are more for the people that have them as opposed to the people that see them.
Yeah.
Right? So, can you tell the difference? Sure. Yeah, I mean, you can tell when you go look at it, but would somebody glancing at it know? Yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah, there's not going to be any difference for me looking at a friend's wrist and saying, "Oh, you have the 5" kind of thing. That's not it. The always on display, I think, is a really interesting idea, if only because they made a really good use case for it in situations where you're exercising or you can't raise your wrist or to tap on the screen. I think it makes a big difference to a lot of people. It may not be a huge deal to the average person, but I think it's a really interesting new feature because now it acts like a air quotes real watch, because the real watch you wear doesn't turn off when you lower your wrist or those kinds of things. I think this is a great deal.
Well, it's interesting, and you may not know how important that feature is until you've raised your wrist and the watch doesn't come on.
Yeah.
It
is annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you have to tap it, and sometimes it still doesn't come on. Most of the time it does, but and then you're sitting there banging on your watch. I just lifted mine now, and it did come on. Of course it did. But you don't know how much. Or when you're sitting there talking to somebody and you're wondering what time it is and your watch is black, you actually have to lift it up. But if you can just look down and see what time it is, because you know what, you're boring me to death and I have to get out of here. then you can just say, "Oh, look at the time.
Yeah.
Look at the time.
I gotta go.
I gotta go." It's
not a huge upgrade for the Apple Watch. Maybe they could call it the Apple Watch 4.5. They're obviously not going to do that. I like the new watch bands. They've dropped the Milanese loop to $99, which is my favorite loop watch band that Apple had. There's a new Apple Watch Studio in your local store. And now you can mix and match any style watch with any style band, which is it's interesting. It seems like Apple's loosening up a little bit with this stuff, don't they? The price point is good. They've dropped the price of the Apple Watch Series 3 to Fitbit levels, $199 for the base Apple Watch Series 3. Why do you think they kept the 3 and dropped the 4, though?
Well, I mean, that would be the ultimate inexpensive watch, right? So, I mean, they could have done it for that reason. They could have done it because production is easier. I mean, there's so many things that would make it work for them.
I think they dropped it because the 4 would have been too close in price to the 5.
Maybe.
And it might have driven more purchases of the 4. Because the 4 is, if the 5 is just a 0.5 upgrade, then maybe you'd think to yourself, I'll save myself $100 and get the 4. Having the 3 and the 5 gives a big enough gap in the price difference and the feature set to make you think, oh, you know what? I'll give the extra $100, $150, whatever it might be, and get the features of the 5. Because remember, the 5 still got the EKG features. They've still got the fall detection. They've still got all the other kind of stuff in the 5 that the 4 had. I think the 5 is now becoming, if you have a 3, if you have a 1 or a 2 or even a 0, this is a no-brainer. If you've got a 4, probably not, unless you really want that always-on display. And if you've got a 3, it's going to be a really tough decision to make. You've got a 4. Would you buy the 5, or will you buy the 5?
Yeah, I would.
Just out of techno-lust, or because you actually want it?
No, I think the main thing here for me is I've experienced the frustration of always on, so that's good for me.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they would bring the sleep thing that we've talked about before,
yeah.
Sleep tracking through software. So
you think that might happen via software? Interesting.
Maybe.
It's certainly a possibility, and there's no reason why, with what the 5 has in it now, I don't think, and I don't know enough about this stuff to say definitively, but it doesn't seem like it's something they couldn't do in software. I don't know what sleep, because it can already track your wrist movements. Maybe it can't track to the minor degree of you tossing and turning in your sleep. The problem I have is that you may have seen the New York Times article, and we'll get to them, don't worry, that sleep trackers generally aren't very accurate, and even if they are accurate, the information they give you is really of no use unless you've got some way to define the data, to know what this data means, that you're awake or asleep at this time or for this long kind of stuff. I think that's what Apple's working on, is they're working on being able to identify that data in a more concrete way so that users can look at their watch and the watch can say, you didn't have a good sleep last night, here are the solutions. I don't think that's possible right now. I don't think Apple's ready to announce something where they don't have that kind of solution.
Maybe. Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's move on. Let's move on to the iPhone 11. Not the Pro yet, but the iPhone 11. You said in your iPhone 11 event thoughts on loopinsight.com, I think they nailed the naming. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Absolutely.
Couldn't the naming have been better? Just called the iPhone, the Max. Sorry, the iPhone, the Pro, the Max?
See, here's the thing. They kept some of the older iPhones, so they couldn't do that.
True.
So I think that they nailed the naming because of the situation that they're in keeping some of those older ones. So for iPhone 11, and 11 Pro and Max, perfect. Yeah. If they were just starting off, then they could just name it iPhone.
Yep.
And, whatever. You go from there. But, yeah, I think that they got it right.
Yeah, given what you said, given with kind of the corner they backed themselves into or painted themselves into, they kind of had to go this route. I just think it's awkward. The iPhone 11 Pro Max. I thought the iPhone 10 XS Max was awkward too. I think the whole naming convention just doesn't do anything for me. Now you got to help me out there with this. I know you were there in person, so you need to tell me. People are talking about the crazy colors of these new iPhone 11s. They look really boring to me. It's lavender, light yellow, and pale green. These aren't crazy colors, are they?
Well, they're not crazy colors.
Okay, good.
I mean,
they're just colors.
They're colors. I would love to see a rich, deep, dark purple.
Oh, God, yes. Give me a neon
I would
yellow.
love to see that. But, they didn't have that. They went lavender instead. And, that's wrong. They should never put out a lavender and think that it's purple.
No, if you're going to do purple, do Prince purple. I mean, come on. Go purple. This just felt like they wimped out on the colors. Like I said, a bright yellow or a bright green. I've always thought of this phone, this sort of most popular, lowest priced, general consumer phone, as the fun iPhone, as the kicky iPhone. And they've had these colors, they've had colors before, they just don't seem to go far enough for it. The iPhone Red product is a rich, deep, vibrant red, and then you've got these really little lame, not even pastel, just washed out colors that, as Fast Company said, Apple is bringing back crazy colors to years of minimalism. These colors aren't crazy, guys.
No, they're not crazy.
They're not even close to being crazy.
I want a deep, dark, rich purple.
Yep, exactly.
Like you would see on a king's robe.
That's right.
That kind of purple.
Yep, exactly. Go big or go home. Come on now. That being said, what's your opinion on a scale of 1 to 10 of the iPhone 11 for the average buyer?
Oh, geez. It all depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you're taking pictures, 11.
Yep.
I mean, those cameras are incredible. If you're listening to, now see, here's the thing. I don't know if the spatial sound is in music or just in TV. I don't know that yet.
Interesting. I got the impression it was for everything you're listening to. I don't know that for a fact, but that's the impression I get.
I don't know. I don't know. That's just the skeptic in me, I guess, wondering where that's going to show itself.
Yeah.
But, yeah, otherwise, I listen to music and podcasts and everything all the time on my phone. And do people need to do anything special to make that happen? I don't think so.
No.
I think the hardware and the software does that for you. So in that case, I think that's a huge feature. Huge.
The thing I was most surprised about when it came to the iPhone 11 and the cameras was that they chose to go, instead of taking the iPhone 10 cameras, which is a, air quotes, normal and a zoom or a 2x telephoto lens, they went in the other direction. They went for normal to wide angle. And I don't know that if the average person wants to shoot more wide angle shots than they want to shoot more close-up shots. The perfect example is here around our little home. We have deer walking around all the time, and raccoons and birds.
I see that.
Exactly. I mean, there's a deer outside my window as we speak, just sitting there. And what we'd like to do is we'll go up and take pictures of the deer. Well, in that case, I don't want a wide angle lens. I want a zoom lens. And I'll do that on my iPhone 10. I'll tap on the zoom button and it zooms in. And rather than me getting physically closer to the deer and then scaring them off, I can get the camera closer and taking good pictures. Same with pictures of the kids and friends and things like that. I can zoom and get a nice close-up shot of them without having to get physically closer and maybe scare them like I would scare the deer. I don't know that ultra-wide shots are something consumers really are looking for.
Your face itself should be enough to scare the deer.
Exactly, which is why I have to sneak up on little buggers.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. One that I don't know. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that.
It's an interesting choice.
It is. But it'd be interesting to see how they react to, feedback from that.
Yeah. But even if they did react to feedback to that, their reaction can't be that the iPhone, the iPhone 12 has got a zoom lens on and takes away the ultra wide. The iPhone 12, if anything, is going to put the zoom back in and have 3 cameras itself, while the iPhone 12 Pro will have 17 cameras. I mean, who frickin' knows what's going on?
Yeah, they can't. Well, they won't do that and it'll probably be the iPhone 11s.
That's right. Oh God.
So the
whole back will just be a camera. just cut to the middle, man. Just make the whole back a lens.
But that what they did with that film mic, is that what the name of that app is?
No, hang on. That's on the Pro version. Well, we're going to get to that in a second. The iPhone 11 I think for anyone with a 7, even an 8, this is a no-brainer upgrade for you. If you have a 10, don't bother getting the iPhone 11. You're going to get, unless you need ultra-wide. For the most part, it's the same camera from a hardware point of view, from a physical point of view. The only big difference is the camera is now an ultra-wide camera, and a couple of the settings on the camera, a better interface for jumping between these things as well. But if you're going from 6, 7, even an 8, I think this is a no-brainer again. Just like the Apple Watch.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you're in that upgrade cycle, don't even hesitate. Don't, unless you're a very good photographer, don't bother getting the Pro or the Max. Get this one. There's a reason why it's an easy prediction. I'm not saying anything anyone doesn't already know. This is going to be the most popular selling iPhone over the next 6 months, I'd say. Easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that camera, especially when Apple brings out the other features that they've teased us with, I think night mode is a tease on this one. It's coming out in software, either that or the next version of the update. Does the iPhone 11 have the slow-mo selfie?
Right? Isn't that cool?
No, it's not cool! No, it's ridiculous!
Come on now.
I will unfollow the first person that sends me a slow-fee.
You're an old man.
I am. Plus, I don't want to see your ugly mug sliding back and forth in slow motion.
No, it could happen.
There's nothing attractive about the human face in slow motion, okay?
No, there isn't. But dogs.
Dogs? That's right. Maybe dogs would work. But human beings? No. There's none. We just don't look good in slow motion. I don't care who you are.
Dogs in slow motion are awesome. I love dogs in slow motion. I mean, come on.
I might get a big old newfie just to do that. Use slow-mo with drool just back and forth. Come on, Benji, shake your head. Blah, 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 blah. That I'd watch. But I think this is just brilliant. And it's cheaper. It's cheaper than the iPhone XR we got Melissa last year. I mean, come on. That's just not fair. It's better and cheaper. You can't go wrong with that.
I mean, it seems in this whole thing that Apple did that sorry, Bruin's got a ball hair in her tail. There you go, Bruin. There we go, Bruin. I got it. Now I forget what I was saying. See? Dogs.
Exactly. It's just they're more important than humans. There's just no doubt about it.
What were we talking about?
I don't remember either. You said Brewer and I thought about dogs.
Yeah, I thought about dogs.
Okay, move on then. iPhone 11 Pro. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do, as soon as I heard about it, I thought, I got to ask Jim about this. Does it feel different? It's got a matte finish to it. One of the problems I have with the iPhone 10, and I've had with several iPhones, is that glass back feels very, very slippery. And I don't trust it, so I put a case on it. I hate cases, though. I hate cases. There's no point in me buying a light green, what do they call it? Midnight green iPhone Pro Max if I got to cover it up with a case. Does it feel less slippy?
Well, now they have clear cases.
Yeah, true.
Mm-hmm.
But what
got you there, didn't I?
You did. Hoisted by my own petard. Frickin' child. Well, Jesus.
I know exactly what you mean. But yes, it does feel different. It feels more matty. It feels like
what do you can grip more it. Matty? What the hell does that mean?
It feels like you can grip it.
Okay, all right. So it feels a little tackier, a little stickier.
Yeah, okay. But not in a bad way.
No.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. That's something I was really interested in because, like I said, that's one of the issues I have with my iPhone 10 is that glass back just scares the crap out of me of it slipping out of my hands. Visually, except for obviously the camera bumps in the back, there's no physical difference between that and the previous generation's iPhones. They apparently weigh a bit more, but is it even noticeable?
Well, not that I could tell. Yeah. I mean, at this point, you're talking, like milligrams and stuff. I don't see a huge difference in holding them. But, of course, some real reporters would. But
you really want to get to this story, don't you?
No. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm throwing it out
there. The issue that was most interesting to me was the fact that, and Apple's showing it off on the Apple.com website. This update is all about the camera. There is very little else that Apple talked about. They had the head nerd for the A13 Bionic chip come out, and I think for the first time just whacked rhapsodically over all the elements of this thing. First time I think we've seen that outside of a WWDC event.
Yeah.
But otherwise, this is all about the camera. And I know, A, you're not a photographer, and B, you're in during the demo, in the demo room, you really can't put the iPhone through its paces. Did you notice anything remarkable from your perspective as a non-photographer about the camera?
Well, not from me, not just sitting there. I mean, there's nothing that you can really do in that room to make that camera shine.
Yep.
Or not shine.
Yeah.
I mean, you could use it and say, this is a piece of crap,
yeah. Which
I don't think would happen, but there's nothing that you can do either way, in my opinion, to make it seem great or bad. It's just going to be what it is in this open area. So, no.
It's why I've always said these hands-on things that everyone rushes out to put out. Thankfully, the Loop doesn't do that. That everyone rushes to put out Macworld and iMore and Engadget. Hands-on. You've got hands-on for, what, maybe 5 minutes? Dude, are you okay?
I'm okay. I didn't fall.
No, is the beer okay? That's the important thing.
No, the beer is okay.
The hands-on stuff doesn't really matter. You can't tell much about this stuff at all, except, and I don't usually do this for him, I will give huge props out to Jason Snell of 6 Colors and Macworld, who found out a lot of details that weren't in any of the reports that I read or announced on stage. If you want to read more about that, you can go to loopinsight.com and read the story from Jason, or go to 6colors.com and read Jason's hands-on. It was a very informative hands-on when most of them really aren't all that. For a non-photographer, and this is why I was talking about the iPhone 11 so much. For a non-photographer, unless you really want to become a very good photographer, there's really no point in use in buying the iPhone 11 Pro or the iPhone 11 Pro Max, for example, unless you want that bigger screen, because you won't be able to take advantage of a lot of the power of those three cameras, unless you are that kind of photographer. But if you're someone like Jim who just likes taking pictures of beer, the iPhone 11 is going to be just fine.
I took a picture of beer tonight.
I saw that. And did you use the zoom on your camera?
Do you know that when I took the picture of the beer tonight, I could not even see the screen?
Because you were blind drunk? Is that why?
Well, no.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I didn't have my glasses on, so I couldn't see. But I took the picture anyway and posted it without ever seeing it.
That's how I assume you take most of your photos.
That's exactly how I take most of my photos.
Exactly. So there's no use in, unless you have that aspiration of wanting the biggest and the bestest thing at all, there's really no reason. We'll talk more about it in our next segment, Starting Point Photography, about the iPhone. Is the iPhone Pro an actual pro camera?
Why don't you have me on that segment?
Because you don't know anything about it.
Well, I could talk about it.
How impressed were you with the demo, with the video of the Filmic Pro app?
Very impressed.
Why?
I was impressed that you could use multiple cameras at the same time.
Yeah.
That's what impressed me. Holy crap. Multiple cameras at the same time filming different things. Different, like, one is in close, one is ultra wide. You know, I mean, that was great.
You will be able to see all four cameras simultaneously on screen using Filmic Pro and obviously other apps too. And then you can choose two of them to start recording. And it will record both streams in 4K.
In 4K.
That you can switch between.
Craziness. Mind-boggling.
Absolutely mind-boggling. Plus, you can take pictures while you're shooting. You can take video while you're shooting pictures. There's all the freedom this is going to give even talented amateurs to create more compelling images, to create better stories, is remarkable. Filmic Pro is worked with Apple on this. I know the folks at other camera video apps are drooling to get into Cupertino so they can get their hands on this kind of stuff. There was no indication that this was going to be a native feature in the native camera app, though, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Well, this will basically help everybody in the world but me.
Except you.
And you know that's true.
Although I did see a bunch of people saying, you know, there's no point in me getting this camera because I don't take very good pictures anyway. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Unless you're already a good photographer, I will tell everybody this. If you're not a good photographer, this phone will not make you one. If you're a good photographer, this will help.
No, I don't know about that.
It will not. It will not. Because photography is about more than just the camera.
No, no. I don't know. I don't know.
Nope.
I think you're wrong.
I'm not. I'm the professional photographer. You're not. So obviously I can't be wrong.
Oh, I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah, no kidding. So let's just move on. We'll talk more about that in the Starting Point Photography segment. We saw this on Twitter this morning. The New York Times wrote a remarkable article. Just incredible in its, if nothing else, tone deafness with regards to Apple and Apple keynotes. The article was titled, where did it go? Opinion, the last Apple keynote, hopefully. This was from Charlie Wurtzel. Charlie is a opinion writer, an opinion writer at large for the New York Times. And
not an intelligent writer.
Not a good writer. Yeah, we'll do that. You read this piece. So let's talk about this piece first, where basically he's saying that the keynotes are, to him, boring, uninteresting, and unnecessary. Do you agree with that?
No.
What are keynotes for?
To introduce new products.
Why can't Apple just do that on their website?
Because there are a lot of things that people don't know about the products that are exciting and will drive sales.
Ding, 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 ding.
You know what I think is unnecessary?
What's that?
Opinion articles on keynotes.
And why do you think that, Jim? Come on.
No, I'm going to leave it.
No, you can't do that now. Come on, man.
Well, his article was stupid.
It was stupid.
It was just stupid. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it.
The idea of, he says, why keynotes need to end. Losing them doesn't mean that new technology isn't impressively engineered or that Apple has failed. He said, the iPhone set out to change everything, and it did. Mr. Jobs famously pitched Apple products with the line, "It just works." So he's thinking that keynotes aren't necessary anymore to show off products to people. But
well, that's wrong.
It's absolutely wrong, but it's also misunderstanding why Apple does keynotes. Certainly one of the reasons why Apple does keynotes is because they get millions of dollars of free publicity.
Well, it's and to be clear, this isn't just about Apple. It's about every company that does a keynote.
Yeah.
I mean, they need that type of publicity to show that their product is good. Yeah. And, that's Samsung, it's LG, it's, every company needs a keynote in order to put their new products out there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And he's just wrong. He's just plain wrong.
It was followed up by a tweet by Jack Nickus. Jack is the New York Times reporter covering Silicon Valley. And Nickus wrote in response...
Great guy.
Salt of the earth! Can't wait
Jack
to bring him home to mother.
Hey, Jack.
Hey,
What's
Jack.
up, brother?
How you doing, douche nozzle? In response to Charlie Wurzel's post, he says, "I don't see a problem with a tech company hosting a product launch. Most do it. If he'd left it at that, he'd have been okay."
He would have been okay, Jack. You would have been okay.
But your next sentence...
Douche canoe.
Exactly. Your next sentence was, "What's strange about Apple events? Many Apple bloggers act as fans, not journalists. One person in the media section literally gave Tim Cook a standing ovation. Another cried during an Apple Watch ad." Jim, take it away, my friend.
So there are a couple of things that Jack didn't consider.
Yes.
So one of the things is that in Steve Jobs Theater, there is no media section.
Correct.
So Jack offered no evidence that the person who stood and clapped was actually media, because the way it goes in Steve Jobs Theater is that you have the very front section, which is all the VIPs, Apple executives, board members, invited guests, things like that. That's all Apple VIPs that are down in that section. Then there is a gap, and then there is everybody else.
Yes.
And that could be people from companies, and I know this for a fact. It's not, me speculating. I know that people from the companies are up there because I know those people.
That's right.
And I've seen them. They're intermingled with media that are also in that section.
Yep.
Any invited guests could be in that section. So does Jack know, because he was in that section, that the person that stood up was in fact media?
Yeah.
Or could it have been an Apple employee? Could it have been somebody from one of the companies doing the demo? From what I've seen, Jack does not know that.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jack, I don't want to call you an asshole, but, you know, that was a pretty asshole statement to say.
Jack Nickus is the New York Times reporter covering Silicon Valley. He knows what the rules of reporting is. Now, this was not a report, but he's making factual statements with no evidence to back them up. So as Jim said, there is no media section where only the media is. So if Jack was there, he knows the person next to him is media, the person in front of him is media, the person behind him is media. Jack does not know who these people are. Then he says many Apple bloggers act as fans, not journalists. Jim?
So, Jack, I would like to say that I am not only an Apple blogger, but I am a journalist who has worked and been on many mainstream, you know, CNN, CBS, NBC, Squawk Box.
Adding it to the resume.
Many mainstream media sites and TV. And I am not an Apple fan, boy, which is what he meant to say.
Yes.
I am a user of Apple products because they work.
Yep.
That is why. I have told Apple that since the early days. I've been reporting and covering on Apple since 1994. And I use those products because they work. That's it. That's all. So I'm not a fanboy. And I give Apple shit when they deserve it. Apple Music is an example.
Yeah.
When Apple has a security problem, I give them shit. But I also take umbrage with the fact that there are some biased reporting out there, and I give those reporters shit when they need it. And you know, I have no issue with the things that I write and the things that I say. So when Apple is wrong, I will beat Apple to the ground on being wrong. When a reporter is just trying to get a good headline, I will beat them to the ground.
Yeah.
And it's not in defense of Apple. It's in defense of, I don't want it to sound as crazy as what this sounds, but it's kind of in defense of the truth. So I'm being honest with my readers. You know, I mean, this is, I have one thing that I can offer my readers, and that is that I will always be honest with them. Whether it's, you know, whether Apple is doing something right or Apple is doing something wrong. And these other reporters write this stupid shit like, you know, Apple failed us. They didn't release tiles.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck you.
Yeah.
You know, Apple never said they were going to release tiles. You know, I mean.
One of the things that Jack said that I wanted to help get cleared up, he said many Apple bloggers act as fans, not journalists. Well, it's because many Apple bloggers are fans, and they're not journalists. But in this regard, one of the problems we have is someone wrote to me on Twitter, said, since when did bloggers become journalists? I said, depending on your definition, bloggers have been journalists for years. The law can and does sometimes consider bloggers as journalists. Problem is there's no set definition of either role. The nebulousness of both mean each can be the other. Bloggers can be journalists, journalists can be bloggers. So for Jack to say, to try to paint everyone by that brush, and obviously you know he's saying bloggers with a sneering tone, that's unfair and inaccurate and offensive to to those journalists who do blog.
Right. And, you know, I don't know where I fall into that category. I honestly don't, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I write for the people who read what I write.
Yeah.
And I write the truth. If that's bad for Apple, well, then it's bad for Apple. I can't help that. This is what I believe. And if it's good for Apple, well, I can't help that either.
Jack saved his best for last, though, when he said that there was another person was crying during the Apple Watch ad. The person who was crying actually stepped up on Twitter. Her name is Ellen Cushing. Ellen says, I was the crying reporter sitting next to Jack. I was crying because it's a video about people with disabilities overcoming challenges, and sometimes my face makes water whether I want it to or not. Ellen is the senior editor at The Atlantic. Congratulations to Ellen for bitch slapping this guy. And again, he's making assumptions based on zero information except his preconceived notions of who is in the audience and where they are. Ellen is a journalist, but just because she's a journalist doesn't mean she doesn't have emotions. Doesn't mean she can't be affected by a very well done advertisement or video by Apple. And for him to call her out, I find that just incredibly offensive.
It was very offensive. And it as I wrote in the headline, it was shameful.
Yes.
You know, he called somebody out for having compassion during a video of accessibility where people were using products to help make their lives better. And there was no need for it.
Yep.
And as soon as he found out, he backpedaled.
He really did.
And it was awful. It was, you know what, Jack? If you're that much of a, journalist and you want to pat yourself on the back so much, don't back down.
Yeah.
Stand up. Be a man. Stand up. Pat yourself on the back and say, no, I'm right. But no, Jack didn't.
Yeah.
Jack apologized to her, which is the right thing to do.
Yes.
But still, Jack is an asshat.
Yeah, and he shouldn't have said the line anyway. It doesn't matter that someone was crying, that somebody was applauding, that somebody was doing whatever. Jack, I don't know if this was Jack's first time at an Apple keynote or an Apple event, but he obviously has a fundamental misunderstanding of who the people in the audience are. A lot of them are Apple employees, and as I responded to him and Charlie, that people are applauding and clapping, maybe out of turn. The media in general doesn't applaud and clap, but we do hear a lot of it on the video. And again, I've been at these events, I've seen people clapping, and 99% of the time they're invited Apple employees, and 99% of the time those invited Apple employees are the ones who've been working on these products, and now they see their products that they've worked on for months, years, whatever, coming to fruition and being announced to the world. It's like having a baby. It's literally, you hear from these folks, they're finally able to talk about this thing they've been keeping under wraps for 2 years.
So let me tell you that the last Apple event I was at, not this one, but the last Apple event, I was sitting in a row that was very quiet the entire time. And when their product was announced, they all stood up and clapped and cheered. Now, this time, I was sitting next to Rene Ritchie, and I was sitting next to Lori, and the rows in front of us were all reporters, and not a single one of us clapped during any time during the event. So that's how I come to the point of, how can you be sure that this wasn't an employee that was just really excited that his company was up there, and he stood up and clapped.
Yep, exactly.
Because it's all intermingled at that point. And there is no way Jack would ever be able to tell me that was not an employee of one of the companies that was on stage.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Either Apple or one of the gaming companies or Filmic or something like that. You have no idea.
Yep. No idea. No idea. It could be anybody.
And why this guy is judging the Apple keynote based on the people in the audience is ridiculous. And why wouldn't you want to go to an event where people are excited? And why are you picking, air quotes, on Apple when the same thing happens at Microsoft, the same thing happens at Sony, the same thing happens at Ferrari and Yamaha and other events I've been at? This is what people do.
So a couple of tweets that I didn't post was that he was going after the employees, the Apple employees, that said, have a great day, enjoy the event.
Yep.
And, well, what would you rather, Jack? Would you rather them say, hey, fuckhead, I hope you have a shitty day.
That's right, exactly. Or just ignore it.
Or just ignore it. No, that's the way that Apple does things. And it's just so disheartening to see somebody from the New York Times, blasting the employees that are there. Telling you to have a great time, and wasn't that a great event? I mean, and then they see you.
Yeah.
And they're probably all saying as you walk out, what an asshole that is.
That's right. Well, I desperately hope that Apple makes note of these two guys. And if they're so miserable at an Apple event, guess what? Don't invite them back.
Right.
It's not that big a deal. Lots of folks will take your place, Sparky, and you can report on this event just as easily from the comfort of your own home in Connecticut as you can flying away, all the inconvenience of flying all the way to California.
Or your mother's basement.
Whichever it is. Folks,
which I'm sure where Jack lives.
I've been talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. He's here each and every week. His podcast is The Dalrymple Report. It's available on the iTunes store. Thanks, Jim, as always.
Thanks, Shawn.
Talk to you soon, buddy. See ya.
Bye.
I heard that Monty was saying that he's got an audio issue, so I put the clock up. Just a second. Let me take a look at the video that I've got on this end and see what the difference in the clock I've got versus the clock that you guys will be seeing when it comes to timing. So, no, where is the YouTube link? There it is. I should be able to tell, or I'll be able to tell Monty how far back he is. So on the mark, it'll be 18:55:25. So here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. So it looks like about 4 seconds off here, Monty. I'm not sure how far off it is on your end, but hopefully that helps a little bit. In our starting point photography segment on tonight's show, we're going to talk about the iPhone 11 Pro. Why we only have a little bit of time left. So, what happens at 7? Well, this is back. What happens at 7? No, I'm fine. You have to put your microphone in. People can't hear you unless you have your microphone. The iPhone, why's my head all glossy? God, I hate that. The iPhone, and I'm going to keep screwing this naming convention up for quite some time now. I got to get Melissa on camera. Hang on a second. The iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max were announced yesterday. They are going to be the flagship, as Apple will call them, of Apple's iPhone line. You know what? We're going to do this now on next week's show. We're going to wrap this up right now, and we're going to go off week's show. So, folks, want to say thanks very much to Jim Dalrymple for joining us for an extended version of the show. He was here for much longer than usual. I want to thank you guys for being tuned into the show. We'll talk about the iPhone 11 Pro on the Starting Point Photography segment week's show. Folks, as always, thank you guys very much for joining me. I appreciate you guys being tuned in. As always, I've been Shawn King.
I'm Melissa King.
And you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya.
Bye, all.